All right, so we are doing a live stream now. I'm just waiting on this. Here we go. All right, so unfortunately, I misnamed the live stream. It should be problems in the hobby without a period there. I apologize. I will edit that in post. But we're going to go ahead and actually start talking here shortly. I'm just posting this message into a group chat for people who might want to go in. And we'll see what happens because, yeah, I know that people were on earlier, but unfortunately they had to hop off. So tonight we're going to be talking about some problems that are in the hobby and what's going on Milo's mods. I see that there's three people watching now, and that's great. Um, I want to discuss some of the problems that I see in the hobby lately. Now, I would love to go back and have a discussion regarding now that we have a working brick and mortar pro AEB out on the market. Where do we go from there? Seeing as brushless is still way out of reach for a lot of people when it comes to affordability, and also brushed has caught up technology wise to be with brushless. What's going on, General Strife? Yes, unfortunately, I had gotten a messenger call that kind of booted the live. So I am back. Again, we're talking about a big problem in the hobby, and I want to address it right now. Um, and here's the truth, people. We in the hobby, there are unifiers out there, and I like to consider myself one of them. We're the ones that like to play, kumbaya. We like to be nice to people, and we try to unify the quote unquote warring factions in the hobby. There are those who are super aggro and like, oh no, only this, and then there are those who say, oh no, you don't want to be with this person because they're this or that or the other thing. And as a community, there are certain stores that we like to collectively shit all over. I'll be the first one to say that Foamdemic gets a bad reputation, and in my opinion, rightfully so because of their customer service. And also the quality of their prints is not to my standards at least. It could be better, but um, of those things that I opened up a store and it was the Big Blaster Consortium on Etsy. The reason that I opened it was because I wanted to be able to do 3D printing for the community, and create some quality items that are built to last. They're built to take a beating. Um, People who know me know that when I print bricks. And I don't say that in a bad way. I say it in a sense that my blasters that I've made, my 3D printed blasters, they could be used as melee weapons. I could grab my alchemist from the wall and bludgeon someone to death with it if they ever broke into my house. You know, and to the point where there are people in the community that are respected that do not think highly of 3D printed items. And I'm gonna say Chris Cartea. Everyone knows him. He's one of the FPS kings. When it comes to barrel modifications, Chris is the go-to guy. When he saw a print that I did of the AccuSaber designed by France Foamworks, he was impressed. And for him to leave a compliment about my 3D printing skills and how beautiful the product was mind blowing. Another person who's in the chat, Milo's Mods, he will hate on a 3D printed blaster because he prefers injection molded, mainly because of the fact that it can withstand a beating. When he takes my 3D printed items, and he'll be the first one to be like, dude, this is a freaking like rock hard solid item. That in itself is a feather in my cap. Um, you know what? He's in the chat. I just saw him here. AJ Usog. AJ was actually in Columbus, got to hold Hidalfer when I printed it, and he was the first one that said, this has the weight of a real steel weapon in my hands. It is perfectly balanced. It is beautiful. It is gorgeously designed. Um, so I opened up the store because I wanted to be able to provide that quality of a print to the community in general. And when I had made the announcement, I had been reached out by the owner of France Foamworks. He had wanted to step back and said, "Hey, you know what? Everyone's saying that you're the guy. You're the one to trust with my files." So I inherited them, and I was going to build this consortium up of the products, get them out there for people to enjoy. Cut to the X Shot AEB. Now, I have no doubt that the live's probably going to be kicked off. Thankfully, I'm using StreamYard. That way, hopefully, YouTube can go fuck themselves. I am cursing and I apologize, but I'm a little heated. So, when the X Shot AEB came out, the first thing I said was, ooh, it's kind of ugly because of the exposed barrel. Now, of those things that the first thing I saw was a barrel shroud. Now, I had a conversation with Milo's mods, and he was like, "Dude, you got to get something in there. Get to designing one." Tag, he had started to design one. I originally was going to carry it with him, for him, and do the prints for him here in the U.S. Then he decided to release the file for general printing, and I said, "You know what? You're other people are going to be able to print this. There's not going to be a market for me to make this." Another person has made a market of that, but whatever. Now, that being said, I went ahead and actually worked on this one. At the time that I actually announced this design, no one had made a quad rail tactical shroud, which is what the SOCOM X1 is. It is the X1 because it is an experimental shroud. My design originally was to have a sci-fi base shroud and then have the SOCOM shroud as separate. I got honestly tired of making so many prints, so I said, you know what, let me go ahead and actually combine it into one concept, and here it is. I'm going to go ahead and actually explain a couple things about the shroud, because that way, hopefully people don't ask this whenever they ask me to print it. And the most common question is, why doesn't the tactical rail extend all the way to the front? Now, it is a wonky design without a full tactical rail. I'll be the first one to admit that. However, in the testing, and Milo's mod will tell you, I tested this thing significantly. During my product testing and my R&D, what I found was that with this shroud, when you actually put the sight right here at the very end, at the very last pip where the rail ends, you are lined up perfectly with the stock barrel and the B car. You are zeroed in perfectly, almost dead-eye accurate. So that was where you wanted to put the rail. When you actually had the 12-inch barrel, you could actually still see the B car a little bit, and it was still zeroed in properly, because unless you actually pushed it a little bit further back, you were going to keep your accuracy there. So that was why it needed to be back here. Again, this print, before I came to this final product, I must have printed it out around 4 or 5 different times. Even a member in the hobby, Adam Fowler, you can listen to his podcast. He announced it in his podcast. I had actually given him access to a file that I had designed to say, here, print this, tell me what you think. And he found a flaw that I took it back to the drawing board, redid it, and that led towards the final design. So I say this because this barrel shroud right here, of course, I've made some modifications to it that other people might soon get to learn about. Once you take off the B car, I think I'm going to take the barrel out completely with this thing. So once you take out the B car, this barrel shroud, I made it so that you could slide off. Let me go ahead and adjust this here. This is actually a 3D printed collet that I found. It makes it so that my shroud doesn't take as much pressure to pull it on and off. Unfortunately, it doesn't hold it in properly, but whatever. I'll have to reprint this part and go from there. This is not my design. It looks like it tension cracked. That's, like I said, not my design. So that being said, this shroud is what was on Etsy, minus the Pico Booper. The picture just had, honestly, the B car, and you could see that it was attached to the blaster itself. Somebody saw this and labeled it as a firearm policy violation. Now, what I mean by a firearm policy violation, or what Etsy means, is that anything that is made to modify a firearm or a paintball gun. This is not a paintball gun. This is a toy. It is a child's plaything, as y'all have said in the chat. That way YouTube doesn't try to disconnect the live. This right here is a 3D printed piece of plastic that has Picatinny rail on it. Now, I say this because other stores have had a shroud attached to the blaster and have not had any problems. Xbox Games, and again, please, I'm only calling Xbox out because their shroud is popular and because they're the well-known store on Etsy. This is not an insult to Joe. But Joe's stuff is able to exist freely and no one's saying a damn thing about it. The only difference between Joe's shroud and my shroud is that I have 2 rails on the side. He has 2 rails on the top. So there you have it. Color-wise, his is all white with black. Mine was white with the red and the blue racing stripes and the silver rail. So yeah, I know it's time to design. Yeah, but it would have worked. Yeah, that's fair. There is another one which I might print out because it's a thicker one. I might go and actually print that one out and try it once I'm done with all of the prints that I have going on right now because of the barrel shrouds that I ordered. So that being said, I have 10 orders right now, and actually 9 orders right now that are backed up, and hopefully she'll be coming to fruition soon. I've got already 2 of them done that have been shipped, and we're going to be getting more here soon. I'm sorry to hear about that, Bill. Now, that was the second product that I got tossed out of Etsy. The first one, and this one's bonkers to me because this one violated the firearms policy, folks. This violates the firearm policy. More specifically, the 3D printed file that makes this. This violates the firearm policy. It just dropped. This was also the picture that was on there. So this violates the firearm policy because it allows you to put on a battery buttstock that's not the atrocious buffer tube for the AEB, the motorized piston pump. While we're at it, let's go ahead and talk about this because this design was actually an ingenious idea on my behalf. And that was that I saw everybody trying to design a buffer tube stock. And the problem when you do a buffer tube stock is if it's 3D printed, the tension eventually is going to cause this rod to break. And you know what? If they add it, that's fine. I've already made almost $200 on my design. So there you have it. I paid for my R&D and filament so far. Now, that being said, the way that this design was born, and I'll talk about it really quick, was that with all the complaints that happened, and my review, I noticed it as well, was that the buffer tube was very flimsy. You had the master lock nut, but even that comes loose over time. So when I first got my AEB and I unpackaged it, I noticed that just by putting my cheek up against the buffer tube, it would cause the stock to rotate. I wanted to stop that. And after 3D printing a couple of versions, in fact, I have the prototype that I 3D printed. I ran into the situation where it snapped right there because of the tension while trying to twist on. So I had to come up with a better way. Over the course of a phone conversation, the idea was floated of why don't we just do an end strike attachment? And I was like, well, I'd love to be able to get a file, and that way I could just use that, don't have to create, a new thing. Um, well, it turns out that I did have to create it. So I actually grabbed one of the STLs for an attachment for the actual end strike lug, and then I added the threading for it. It's I had the measurements for the threaded barrel. Why not? And I actually added a couple of extra things with this design that were quality of life improvements, which you can actually buy the STL file because of the fact that, in my opinion, Hasbro owns the right to this design. No one really owns the right to threading for a 21 or 29 whatever .5 thread. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the person who came up with a buffer tube stock for real pew pews has long since passed. So I was going to sell this file, and it's the only file that I actually sell because it's my way of giving back to the community, being like, here, you know what? Here's something I made for you guys to use. Attach your actual battery buttstocks onto your blaster. Apparently, this was a problem for someone because they reported it as a firearm policy, and I know it was a report because Etsy advised me that it was reported to them. In the letter that they said was that it was reported to them that this violated firearms policy. Same way that my actual shroud violated firearms policy. That was the second letter I got. So I had known, and I'd seen the writing on the wall by Lidl, by Marcus Kraus, or is it Klaus? I apologize, Marcus, if I butchered your name. And things were being removed, things that were no way a layman would look at them and say, "Oh, that looks like a real blaster or a real gun," I should say. So I said, you know what? You want to throw down the challenge like that? Somebody out there wants to be catty in the community? Fine. Let's do it. Last night, I dropped a little bit of money. I'm set for a good year, and I'll be paying a monthly hosting service fee. That way I can make modifications to it whenever I want to. But I went ahead and actually created the web presence for the Big Blaster Consortium. BigBlasterConsortium.com. You can actually go there now, and the page is live where you can actually find the products that I've designed that are already on Etsy, and put them on there. And you can also buy yourself an STL for this. And you can also buy the barrel shroud. I will say that right now, unfortunately, when it comes to my print load, it is backed up only because of the fact that I had a catastrophic printer failure. So I'm waiting on Bamboo Labs to provide the customer support I need. So I am limping along with my prints, going, to do it the best that I can to get things printed. But the store is available. So there you have it. If you do have a 3D printer, of course, this file, it is $5. That would be for this. And this does allow you to utilize a battery buttstock of your choice. I will go ahead and actually show how I developed this here soon. The file itself, when you print it out, there's a little B on the bottom portion. You line up that B with the bottom of the blaster, and then you start twisting in. Well, once it's lined up, there you go. And it just twists in. Now, the reason that I marked it with a B, and this is the important part, is that as you twist, you're going to notice that it starts to get tight eventually. But I did the threading perfectly and designed this so well that there's my little marking right there. The original was an X, as an X marks the spot. And you just, there, it's already kind of secure. You twist just a little bit more, and there's secure. And oh yeah, X marks the spot on the bottom. So now you have a attachment point that installs properly, that you don't have to worry about over twisting, which is the big problem when you had the buffer tube stocks that everyone was 3D printing, because you would over twist, the tension would cause it to snap off. Also, when you 3D print this, you'll see that there's a little flap of plastic that's almost like an overhang that I left in there, and you're going to be like, oh man, you designed it with a really wicked looking overhang. Why? That little extra plastic adds some more support so that when you're twisting, when you get towards the end, the tension in there, it feeds through there. So all that's by design. And this one's not finished yet, but it's on secure. Now I do have to install the spring and the clip here, but there's a battery buttstock that I'm did the prototype for, almost finalized, and there you go. It just snaps right in, hardware free. This is actually a design that was done by France Foamworks from several years ago. It was done by Uncle Chubb. They actually utilized magnets to hold the butt plate together. I found that the magnets were a pain in the butt to put in there. And the magnets that I found the right size for, or I should say, getting the size of them was not easy. So I went ahead and actually adopted a hinge system that they had used with another design and adapted it to this design as well. Now, eventually, I'm going to be doing this same kind of ordeal here with this much more robust design, and then literally making it so that the end strike attachment point back here is part of the actual buttstock itself. So instead of being multiple pieces that you print, it's just one big piece. And that way you are good to go. So that is what happened here. I did the live today because I wanted to be able to talk to everyone because of the fact that this was because it was reported by somebody. There is a Karen, so to speak, who is reporting stores for firearm policies. Now, that is one theory. I do not have proof of this yet, but people talk in chats, people talk on Discord. And everything that happened to me happened after one of my files, one of my items was listed on the Foam News Collective. And no sooner than it was listed did somebody buy it, and right after somebody bought it, they took it down. So I've got the sneaking suspicion, and again, what may have happened, again, this is just me speculating, is that somebody out there saw that there was a design that was done and said, "Oh, look, here's the up and comer. Let's fuck with them." And if that's the case, congratulations. You got what you wanted. You got me to notice you, and you got me to get agitated. And you know, funny thing about when I get agitated is that I become more determined. Um, I used to say when I worked in a call center, people would be like, "Why are you so angry, Norm?" And I'm like, "You know what? I need to be angry because my work gets better the angrier I am." Um, so literally last night while I was seething, I went ahead and knocked out a website, did all my listings, did all the banking paperwork, got it all done, and now you just go to bigblasterconsortium.com and see for yourselves. The stories there as to how the consortium came to be. The products are there. More products will be coming soon. And as I say in the actual storefront there, what I started off with is ethics and integrity in foam flinging. Because you know what? That is one thing I have plenty to spare of is ethics and integrity. I can't say the same thing about any of the other stores out there. So now the live also the title is the problems with the hobby. Yeah. We're going to run into a situation here soon. Um Things are expensive. We can say that. Things cost money. And our hobby is no different. You know. Um like I said, with the launch of the X Shot piston pump, we're going to go see that AEBs are now more affordable. And the question that I've posed to a lot of people that have been in the hobby for a long time, and again, I've been dealing with Nerf for almost 3 decades now. I was out of the hobby for a couple because adult life happens, and I got really sick. But as somebody who was there when the long shot came out and the Maverick came out, and I've been able to catch up when I dived back in and saw the evolutions that happened ever since, I'm now wondering what's left. Brushless is still, like I said, highly unaffordable for people. You have all metal blasters, but it's just a material change. So where do we go from here? HPA, a lot of clubs won't run it because of the fact that you have local ordinances that forbid it in certain areas because that crosses it into the firearm situation. 40 max shells. I love these things. Like these are good. These are great for little grenade launchers. This is a good shield breaker. This one's actually ultra, and it gets about 3 darts at 150 FPS in the spread, which is kind of nice. So where do we go from here in the hobby? Because even with my plan and within the next month, I'm going to be unleashing upon the hobby a big Blaster Consortium quality printed version of the Realm. Speaking of which, I will make an announcement when pre-orders are available to do this. But even then, even though it's high powered, it is still just another pump action Springer. So, actually, I think I think that one's actually a bolt action. But point is that how many more pump action Springers are going to be released in the hobby? A pro grade rough cut. Yeah, a rough cut would be great. But here's the thing, guys. Again, the mechanism is what I'm talking about. I would love a pro grade rough cut. I think that'd be cool as hell. But where do we go from here? Now, I do know that Dustin is working on a design, and God bless him. I need to get time to print this out. It's the blaster that was teased on Foam After Dark regarding the stringer that feeds into shells, that feeds into a flywheel. That is going to be one that I'm eventually going to carry. I need to find a way to print it out and get it beta testing once my printers are all back online. We'll be able to do that, and I will be carry it. But so there is a pro lever action already, and that is the Silly Butts slab. The pro lever action already exists in the 3D printed community. So we don't have anything like new coming out, which means that if we don't adopt different ammo types, and I'm not saying N series, please, I'm not shilling N series, though I would love to see N series go pro. But if we're not willing to adopt different ammo types, what we're going to see is the same thing over and over and over again. And the innovation is going to be gone. So, again, interesting. That's a good point of failure. Yeah. So yeah, you are correct, Milos. I was going to call it a Japas, just another pump action Springer. The big Blaster Consortium Japas. Just play on the fact that everything's a Strife and everything's a pump action Springer. If Joshua Franz was here, he'd say, "Oh, you mean a Retaliator?" So yeah. Now, besides the where do we go from here question, we also have to discuss again, it's the sabotage. It's the sabotage. Because I don't think that what happened to me with Etsy is some rando outside of the hobby that reported something. Because my shop's profile did not get enough reach. When you have companies like, again, Xbox Games, you have companies like Foamdemic that have actual blasters on there that look like actual, you know, weapon silhouettes. They're not having any problems, which makes me wonder, is it somebody in one of those stores that is getting rid of things to get rid of competition? And if that's the case, like I said, I can respect that. I can respect that. I'm as cutthroat as the next person. But, and I made a posting on this on Facebook, as cutthroat as I am, I've always held back on my critiques. Mainly because of the fact that, again, I try to be a unifier in the hobby. You know, ask AJ. I like to give back to people. I like to construct, not deconstruct. But every criticism that I have, I'm not above criticizing. Every criticism I have, I bring receipts for. And I'm not afraid of critiquing the big companies. I can think from now on, I'm going to come back not only with receipts, but with a gallon of gas and a match to light them all on fire. Because you know what? Gloves are off. Just saying, you know? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just like most Puerto Ricans, I'm very kind, but soy muy caliente por debajo. Very, very hot and spicy underneath. So, yeah, denominator. The hobby does always surprise me. Um, and again, like I said, Dustin's design, that was a blind side for me. But when it comes to actual things available for purchase, X-Shot has been in the front of the game in 2025. All right, you have a top slide pistol that was a pro, that was a build up in their quality for their pro line, and then the current quote unquote kings of pro, which is Dart Zone, just kind of fizzled out. They gave us a new color on an old theme, and I will call out the Dart Zone fans right now. Seriously, get Dart Zone's ass away from your face long enough to smell the roses and realize that what you're smelling is shit, not perfume. So, um, just because it says Dart Zone on it doesn't mean it's the best thing. The keyword here, and mind you, I'm going to get one for a review because I believe that the price point is decent, but the Brute is nothing but an evolution to an older design that was already good, and they made it so it could use Nightingale magazines. But oh yeah, the same problems that the other two versions had, this one had also. So there you have it. That's the new introduction. Oh, and then they also have that new pro whatever, their little chain fed flywheel. Congratulations. You took what I did with the rapid strike, not a rapid strike. You took what I did with the insanity, the rage fire, and made it so that it was bought out of the box like that. I'm not impressed. Oh no 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 oh no no hold on. You mentioned one thing. Is it Demonator? Yeah, Demon. I want to call you Denominator. Sorry, I apologize. That's a math term. Demonaminator. Can't I can't. Why would you make a name I can't pronounce? Anyways, the Venom Pro does not constitute that. I'm talking about 2025. The Venom Pro was last year, and the Venom Pro, for what it was, even though I had problems with it, and the Maxim was good, The Venom Pro, I'll admit, was a good design. It is a full auto flywheel pistol, but it's not anything that didn't exist before because all they did was take a Nightingale and make it cheaper, and that's fine. Look, that's great. But the Nightingale already existed. So, it's like, okay. Um, and I can grab another one that is roughly the same form factor. That does the same thing as the Venom Pro. Now, this is obviously a little chunkier, but it is literally full length fed, has a grip up here, which is optional. But other than that, it's pretty much the same size as a Venom Pro, minus the little back part right here. This is not a buttstock. This is actually where the battery goes. And this design is almost 3 years old. It's the Meeker. So, again, I get where people are saying that the Venom Pro is a great blaster and it does everything you want it to do. It's compact, but it's not anything new. That's where I'm getting at, is that we're seeing reskins of the same theme. New, technically, even the piston pup's not new, but it's the first time that we've seen a commercially available AEB on a storefront. Much like the same way that the Venom is the first time we saw a commercially available storefront full auto flywheel pistol. So that's why that one gets a pass. What doesn't get a pass is them saying that 2025 they're re-releasing the Venom Pro in blue, charging more for it, or in whatever colors, charging more for it. Same thing with the Outlaw. And oh yeah, hey, look at that. The blaster that no one really bought the first 3 colors that we put it out for. Let's go and actually put it out again in Hot Rod Red, which is the Mark IV. So thank you, Ranger Ben. Yeah. So make an 8. What the heck? Okay, thank you. So, Demon Animator, thank you for actually spelling it out because that's what I thought it was. I'm like, is this 2 words? But it's all jumbled up on one screen. Also, my TV, my monitor is actually like maybe 3 feet ahead of me, and I am very nearsighted. So, that's why I'm like, what? Oh, blind ass motherfucker. That's why my videos you never see me with my glasses on unless I'm live. So, yeah, guys, just I need readers. I need bifocals. I'm officially old. Oh, I believe it, man. I believe. Yeah, YouTube's weird like that. How I got a hold of secondhand with a space and blasters at the end is beyond me because I thought that I wasn't going to be able to get it to be spaced, but they did it. So whatever. But yeah. So that's pretty much what the live was. I wanted to actually show you guys the new products that what was too hot for TV, so to speak, for Etsy. Too spicy for Etsy apparently because oh no, it's a firearm. And oh no, it's a firearm. But show you guys what's coming down the pipeline. Because this design, again, it's almost ready to launch. Unfortunately, once my printer is done, I need to make some quality of life improvements to this and go from there. And I'm actually quite impressed because this right here, that flings off. It's made to do that. Because it just clips back on. So, like I said, it clips back on. Ow, shit. Ow, that hurts. And the only thing that's connecting this together is there's some glue that connects a tube here, and that's it. That's all it is. It's just some epoxy. So the only other quality of life improvement that I want to make on this is just maybe try to make this all one solid piece that prints, so I don't have to worry about glue. So, but yeah, any questions regarding any of the things that I've talked about or any of the products? Because now's the time to ask. That looks like a M249. Yeah, yeah. You can flip them just like you can with an AR-15 for the AR. I So yes, I did. AJ, that was very funny. You clapping cheeks with the Percy's. That's kind of hilarious. I was curious how that Strife camera worked out. Have you been able to test it yet? Perfect. That's what I like to hear. No, Andy, and I agree. They did, which is good. It's good that we got it, and that's the one saving grace for it is it has Nightingale magazine compatibility. Um, but the problem with it though is that they released a blaster that, by all accounts from certain reviewers, and I've held it, I've fired it. It fires okay, but it has the same issues that the 2.1 and even the 2.0 had that you had to take care of, that you had to fix. So like with the safety. So there's that little issue with it. So just to give you all an idea, what I was talking to AJ about his Strife camera. I had actually made for him. He was telling me that he was looking to get a camera mount so he could do battle footage with the Strife. And this was like, AJ, if I'm not wrong, you mentioned this like at 9:45, almost 10 o'clock at night, while I was doing some work, and I was like, "Oh, I got you. I can take care of this." Um, yes, AJ, it will take skinny angled Talon magazines. It'll take the Nightingale and the Venom Pro mags. So I get to work on this, and I come up with this little like little mount. Let you hold an iPhone or a Samsung or whatever that you can fit into this little threaded screw, and mounted it on an Nerf rail mount. I made two designs. One that you mount on the top rail of a Strife, that way you have your camera like that. And then one, which is the one that I ended up giving AJ, that mounts like this, has a sidebar, so your phone mounts on the left-hand side of the Strife. So if you are a left-handed shooter, you have it like this. You have your Strife here, and your camera's mounted on the side, so it doesn't get in the way of the way that you fire. Which I believe that's how AJ plays. Also, it's made so that it counterbalances the battery that falls on the right side. So you have a more perfectly balanced blaster depending on how heavy your phone is. Now I don't know if he's blowing smoke when he says that, but I recorded footage of me trying to shake it around, and yeah. The other cool part about this particular about that particular mount, and I hope he gets to use this, is that if you were to shine a black light on this, it glows because it's a glow in the dark filament. So that's a little added bonus that it was just a filament I had loaded. Now I mentioned that because I'm torn whether or not I should sell this on the store. I don't know if there would be a market for it, but it does work with Rival Rail and with Nerf Rail. It's a little loose on standard Nerf Rail, but it's made more specifically for Strife. So that is Rival Rail. Let me see if I have a Nerf Rail nearby here that I could try to use. This one's technically a Nerf Rail. Yeah, it's loose on Nerf Rail, unfortunately, but it will work on Strife Rail. The Strife X Rail, I should say, because Strife X Rail is a little bit different than Nerf Rail and a little bit different than Rival Rail at the same time. So there you have it. So if y'all are interested in something like that for yourselves, let me know. I can always just print out that file, go from there. That's just a little small accessory, and I'll be more than happy to put that on the consortium shop because again, now that I run my own shop, I can make as many listings as I want and not be charged $1 or 20 cents each listing I make. Yay. So that would be cool if we could actually have black lit arenas around the US, but sadly we do not. So, guys, I just want to thank you all for tuning into the live again. The live today, it was just to actually discuss, the problems that I had with the consortium store, let people know everything that happened, be upfront and honest, and anyone who's watching that made an order with me know that right now I am limping along because of the fact that I had my printers went down. I'm down to just one, especially seeing as I have I have three printers, only two that are AMS capable, and the fastest AMS printer that I have is the one that's down and out right now until Bamboo Labs can provide me support that I need. So that being said, if you did order something from me already, just be patient. I am working on it. Good thing about that is that I can still do my lives and do everything else while the printer works. Speaking of which, just told me that there's a load error, so I just got to go take care of that real quick. But that's pretty much it for the night. I am going to be making this live public for people to watch so they can know what happened, why it is that I'm actually moving off of Etsy and going to the Big Blaster Consortium .com website. Also, one of the things I'm going to offer to those who have smaller stores or want to list their products on the consortium store, I had said that my original plan was to have YouTube content creators that wanted to offload all of their blasters that they have in backstock, a place where they could be listed. You know what? You let me know what you want to list for, and we'll work something out where I collect the money, I pay you whatever it is that you're asking for, and you get a shipping label sent to you, and you ship it out to whomever it is that buys it. That way, we can actually get the actual blasters there. I know that somebody in the community tried to do a store comparable to Blaster Barn, um, which is another small problem in the community that I have. But apparently, this person had made a listing, or I should say, a social media posting that was very, I guess, racy. I don't know about racist. I didn't read it. I'm getting secondhand information, and that has caused a store that was having potential to being a used blaster store, a used blaster depot, if you will. Um, and that person is being shunned by the community now because of something that he said on another social media site not anything he ever said while nerfing. So I'm not going to defend anything that's been said. I'm not going to defend, anyone's actions, but there's a reason why I like to keep politics out of my channel. I'll make the occasional joke and quip, but I try not to be political. And if we're going to keep or preach that we need to keep politics out of the hobby, we need to keep all politics out of the hobby, not just the politic that we disagree with. Because the statement, I prefer for people to keep politics out of the hobby, rings very hollow when it's only what you don't like that causes a problem with other people in the hobby. Like, as in, when you see someone say something that you don't like politically, you decide to then shun them just because of that. That's not what this hobby is about. This hobby should be about uniting us under one common thing, and that is that we all like to fling foam. So that's off my soapbox. Those of you who know me know what my ideals are, and know just how anti-current establishment I am, or I can be. So we'll have you make with that with what you will. I think we can all agree just one thing: don't hurt kids, don't hurt animals. So there you have it. But that's it for the live, guys. I want to appreciate everyone for tuning in, watching, and hearing me rant. Again, bigblastheconsortium.com. Go there. I will be uploading a lot of new things here soon. I know that Mr. Franz and myself have been working on some things. He has a student that has been studying underneath him. Very, I'm about to do a movie quote here, but a very adept pupil. And I will be hosting that design on the consortium store, and it's going to be something fun, not pro level, but something very fun and very gimmicky. So yeah. Hey, you know what? Listen, Demon Animator, I appreciate you even being here. You got to listen on the majority of it. I am going to be releasing the live there for people to listen to and go back. You'll be able to see it from the very beginning. This live was nothing too serious. It was just me talking about the products that were banned from Etsy, the story about why I'm going to be removing everything from Etsy eventually, and going from there. And also, for those of you who are fans of the AccuSaver, I'm going to have to rechange the name because it's not the final edition of the AccuSaver. AccuSaver lives again. I might have to call it the AccuSaver from Down Under. But yeah. Once I can get a print of it, I'll make the announcement for it because I'm really happy with what I was able to work out with NXT Australia. So stay tuned for that one. Peace out, y'all, and keep on blasting.